everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after not that good of a showing by the Winnipeg Jets. Rick Bowness said afterwards they deserved to lose that game, and no doubt about it, they deserved to lose that game. Gotta say, comment was made here. I was cruising and seeing what everyone had to say about this. Terry M says, don't be surprised how the Jets played tonight. They played the exact same way on Sunday against the Coyotes and won. Unfortunately, Lady Luck ran out on the Jets tonight. Yeah, I couldn't agree with this more. I mean, this to me is the same game as we saw the Jets play essentially against the Detroit Red Wings. I know they didn't win that one. They were able to make a stronger push. I think what upset Rick Bowness the most is there didn't seem to be much of a push. So I think it's easy to lay this on the, we didn't have the legs tonight. It just was an off night, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be letting the Jets off the hook, to be honest. I think that this is the game we've seen from the Winnipeg Jets quite often this year, or maybe I shouldn't say quite often, but at stretches throughout the year where the Winnipeg Jets went out, played a game like this. I think they played the Coyotes like this earlier in the season. So I think both games against the Coyotes were like this. I think a game against the Anaheim Ducks was like this, but they pulled those games off, right? And that's what the Jets have been able to do quite a bit this year. And I think this is what it looks like when they don't pull it off. Want to know why they didn't pull it off? Well, I take it like this. The first period is a classic Jets no-show period. The tortoise and the hare. The Montreal Canadiens are the tortoise. The Jets are the hare, not taking the game seriously. They get pumped in the first period, but come out of it with the lead, right? They get the power play that gets them the goal, and then all of a sudden you take a look, and the Winnipeg Jets are up 1-0 in a game where they really haven't showed up in it. And then you're thinking, okay, this is where this game's going. Then the Montreal Canadiens come out and they tie up that game and they keep going. I think the difference between this game and, let's say, a game like the one that they had against the Detroit Red Wings, where I think people were at least left with the feeling that, the Detroit Red Wings kind of barely held on as the Jets pushed down the stretch there. But my takeaway from that game against Detroit was the reason they lost is because they fell behind. And yes, they're making this great push, but as they make that push, they're taking chances. And when the puck goes the other way, it ends up in the back of their net because they're taking too big of risks to try and get back into a game that they didn't take serious early and fell into a hole. Well, I think tonight is an example of you having to give the Montreal Canadiens credit. The Jets had little micro moments in that game where they looked like they were pushing and then they were coming on. But the Montreal Canadiens didn't roll back into a shell and try to survive the storm. They pushed back. They went the other way. And when they went the other way, they were able to capitalize on their moments. I think this is Rick Bowness's system is a system that is designed to keep it a stalemate until the inferior team cracks, breaks, makes a mistake. You want to go back to that Buffalo game. The game-winning goal is an egregious mistake by a young Buffalo Sabres defenseman, ends up in a ridiculously large breakaway for Kyle Connor. He scores. That's the end of the game. That's what the Jets do, but you need to play not from behind if you want to pull that game off. When you play from behind, then you have to get out of that system, which is designed to say, bring it on, come crashing into the wall that we've built. And when you break against that wall, we'll pick up the puck and go the other way and score and win this game. You can't be a wall. You can't wait for it to come to you if you fall behind like the Jets did tonight. When you fall behind like that, they open up their system and it's not the Rick Bowness system anymore. And next thing you know, the puck starts ending up in the back of your net. And that's how you can look human against a team like the Buffalo Sabres, who are not in the playoffs, but they pull that one off. But again, like a game like tonight against the Montreal Canadiens where they don't pull it off. Do not be surprised this happened. This is the same game that the Jets have played a number of times this year, but their goalie bailed them out, or they got an opportunistic goal, or something happened and they won. We've heard Rick Bowness talk about games in which the Jets didn't deserve to win, that they pulled it off. That's another way of saying that the Jets deserve to lose those games. Well, it's what he said tonight. The Jets deserve to lose this game, and lose it they did. This, to me, goes back to this game. this attitude, this not showing up at the beginning of the game, that cruising through and getting by on your special teams, the getting up in the game and looking like, yeah, we've got this everywhere. Now let's wait for this team to fall apart. This was the sickness. This was the disease. This is the disease that Rick Bowness has tried to root out of this team. It's my belief this is the disease that has held this team back since 2019. And it's like, if anyone out there watches The Walking Dead, the idea in that zombie show is that everyone is infected with the disease. Just at some point when they die, they're going to become a zombie. You don't have to be killed by a zombie to become a zombie. The disease is in all of you. This disease resides within the Winnipeg Jets. And tonight is just an example, I think, that Rick Bowness has done a phenomenal job this season of taking that disease and treating it and holding it down. But tonight, to me, is an example that the Winnipeg Jets, this is part of who they are, and it is something that Rick Bowness will battle game after game after game down the stretch and into the playoffs, and it will be his biggest challenge as a coach of the Winnipeg Jets. And if you don't believe that, just check and see why during this winning 8 of 9 games before tonight, now it's 8 of 10, but during that stretch of winning 8 of 9 games, he was not happy in a lot of games because the signs of this were creeping in and showing at various stages throughout that. The Jets were getting away with it, but this disease needs to be kept at bay. It exists. It flourishes if they ignore it or if they encourage it. They got to keep this down. I think tonight's another example of that. That's my take on it. Kenny is going to come in and share his take on it. Here comes the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. I may sound dire the way that I'm saying that. I know a lot of people are saying in here, I think some people are agreeing with me, and I know I didn't see or I didn't mark it, but someone had said, here we go. Sparky says, let's face it, Sean, Jets will finish 4th or 5th. I don't believe this at all. I think the Jets are a highly skilled team. I think they're going to continue to get away with some games that they shouldn't. I think that that's been a strong pattern for the team this season. I also think they're going to continue to get to Rick Bowness's system, to his blueprint, and they're going to win a lot of games. So this isn't, to me, a sign of, like fire everybody and the sky is falling when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think that at all. But I do still think that this game is an example of what has been wrong for the Jets for a long time, and just another example that if anyone thought that this was cured, it's not cured, and this is what it looks like when it doesn't go well. And as I've contended throughout this streak that they've been on, there's a lot of games I think they won that they should not have won, that they got away with, but getting away with it can lead to this kind of thing. They got to stop getting away with it. They got to instead get to their blueprint.
Yeah, I mean, this was obviously a poor showing for the Winnipeg Jets. It wasn't as bad as, say, the Minnesota Wild game.
Yes.
In terms of puck management, defending, playing responsibly, it's a failure on all fronts. I mean, it was a poor effort. I mean, the Jets were made to be looking very slow by the Montreal Canadiens. They were very sluggish coming out of the gate. They got themselves a power play goal early in the second, and after that, I mean, Montembeault had to make, did he have a handful of saves? I mean, of grade A quality. I mean, no offense to him, there were a couple good ones, but
nice one on Ehlers.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, I didn't see it to be like the Detroit game because Husso was basically hanging on for dear life in that game. And if there had been another minute in the game, they might have found a way to get one. But the Jets just didn't have much of an answer. That they didn't have any speed going. They had no legs. They were not connected. They didn't make a lot of smart decisions. They did not support one another. They just seemed to be on a different page. And it's interesting, Sean. when Kyle Connor said the Jets seemed to be on a different page, it wasn't like last year where the Jets were kind of ignoring the page that their coach wanted them to be on. What he meant was that when I was zigging, you were supposed to be zagging, and it just kind of went the other way. The royal you in that case, not you or I. But it's certainly interesting to see. To me, the bigger thing is the response. We're going to dig into this game for a long time here this evening, but this isn't a sky is falling scenario, but it also isn't an acceptable scenario, which Rick Bowness made abundantly clear, as did his players. It's not just when they're going to slough off and say, oh, well, ho-hum, that was poor, move on. I mean, Rick talked about the responsibility of being in that chase. And when you have that responsibility of being, tied for fourth with the mighty Maple Leafs going into the game, and then they go out and lose to a team that's near the bottom of the standings and hasn't won consecutive games since November, it's not setting off alarm bells, but it is definitely getting your attention if you're a member of the Winnipeg Jets, because now they're going to roll into, Toronto on Thursday, and they're going to have to be much sharper. And, I think that's important. This team has shown a propensity to bounce back on numerous situations this season. That has been very much part of their DNA. But I think today reinforces a lot of the things we've been talking about. And even when the Jets had won 8 of 9 and had done an incredible job to skyrocket up the standings, the reason why I said I don't think the Jets are an elite team is because of some of the things that we saw today and some of the things that you have mentioned. Finding a way to pull games out of the hat when a team does not have its best is an important quality. But to become reliant on that quality, now that team sets itself to be up into a little bit of difficulty when the games matter most and when the stretch drive arrives. So this isn't to say, the Jets need to get rid of 2 lines of players and, turn over the entire D-core or whatever else. But it is it's a reminder that some reinforcements are going to be required. And that whole thing about structure, Sean, is a year-long battle. It's not just a 1-month battle. It was not a training camp battle. It was a October, November, December, January, February, March, April, potentially May, potentially June, if the Jets get to where they want to be. I don't buy it as a trap game for 1 second, Ryan Cross. I'm sorry. They played the Arizona Coyotes on Sunday. They found a way to get the job done on a night where they did not have their best. They knew that going into a 5-game road trip, they needed to be sharp. They needed to start the road trip with authority, and they were simply unable to do so. And that's not a character indictment. This is a very proud team, as Rick Bowness pointed out after the game. A team doesn't reach where the Jets have reached without being a proud team and without playing with a certain level of commitment. But some nights when that commitment isn't there, then things can go sideways. I mean, Rick Bowness tried a ton of things with his forward line. Scott Arniel changed the defense pairings multiple times. The Jets just had no answer in this game. And, sometimes that happens. But at the same time, I mean, there are certainly a lot of things they want to clean up as they get ready to continue this road trip. Because, like Brennan Dillon told us about a month or so ago, Sean, no team is the Jets are not sneaking up on teams anymore. They're not sneaking up on teams like the Montreal Canadiens, and they're certainly not sneaking up on the Toronto Maple Leafs. In the all-intrigue, showcase, showdown, all-Canadian, best 2 teams in Canada type of scenario, right? I mean, it's going to be a fantastic game on Thursday, and we'll get to that when I step away from the buffet here too. But, today this is a game where the Jets did not get bailed out, and they didn't play well enough. These are the facts. The Jets know they were not sharp, and it cost them against a team that was playing very freely. They got some nice individual performances, and I would say this, Sean. I mean, the scary thing for the Jets, they actually held Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield in check, and they still lost by 3 goals.
Yeah.
Kirby Dach had a couple of assists. Guys like Josh Anderson. Josh Anderson comes through. Evgeny Dodonov has had a terrible season for the Leafs. I mean, Mike Hoffman is a guy who was a healthy scratch, I think. Sorry, I said Leafs. Yeah. I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Mike Hoffman was a healthy scratch. I think the last time that the Canadiens were in town. I mean, he goes bar down like he's a 50-goal guy again all of a sudden, right? So, anyways, we're going to dig into some of the details here in a moment. But, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Rick Bowness didn't sugarcoat it, nor did he go out and throw chairs and get all crazy. I mean, it's one game. The Jets are going to need to respond, and that is their next challenge in the series of many challenges. Now, as we saw in Game 45, the next challenge is putting a poor performance like that behind them and elevating their game against one of the top teams in the league. Fans may not like it, but it's a fact. The Leafs, with some of their own warts, are one of the best teams in the National Hockey League by wins, by points percentage, by points. So the Jets have an incredible opportunity. Well, they talk about being disrespected all the time, or the fan base does. Hey, they got a great opportunity to go head-to-head with Toronto. Two very good teams will go head-to-head, and I'm looking forward to it.
I got to say this. I just want to make it clear. Like, I take a look at this, and I think what we've seen here is that Pittsburgh game. Someone actually sent me a message during the game and said "exhale game" after the Coyotes game, and I thought to myself, the exhale game was the Coyotes game, right? Like, they went from looking like, I mean, I'll say this. I know the Pittsburgh Penguins aren't playing their best hockey right now. They are a top of the league team and then a bottom of the league team all in the same year, and they've done it, up and down, up and down. They seem to be in a stretch where they're a little bit down right now, but I don't care about that. In the game that the Jets played against the Pittsburgh Penguins, they'll give themselves a chance against every team in the NHL if they do that. If they go out and play that style of hockey, I like their chances against anyone. It puts them in the game against anyone if they play like that. No one can tell me that what they did in their last game against the Coyotes at all resembled what we saw in that game against Pittsburgh, right? So now you have to take a look at this. And I know there's someone, I forget who it is, there's someone in here who is always really upset when I have these conversations and call this kind of stuff out. And every team has a bad game and thinks that I'm being really negative and all this kind of stuff. But if we take a look at the last 5 games, this is what we've got. We've got them losing to Detroit in a game where they let a whole bunch in and got the balance wrong when it came to taking too many chances. They went up and got saved and bailed out by Connor Hellebuck against the Buffalo Sabres and won on an egregious mistake by the Buffalo Sabres. Then they go in and have the, immaculate game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But then after that, they come out and they say that, they play the Coyotes, one of the worst teams in the league, a team that can't buy a win right now, and eke one out against the Coyotes. And then they come here tonight and they get handled. Like, other than special teams, they lost every facet of this game to the Montreal Canadiens. And every time they mustered a push, the Canadiens were able to take the fuse out of the bomb and take it back down the other way. So I get this, people saying this. I get the whole idea. And I know they won 8 of their last 9 games. My take on this, and it's hard, I'll admit this, it's hard to get too worked up about something happening in, January, when the goal, and what I'm saying is the goal, is happening in the playoffs, right? It's hard to do that. And I understand people saying that. You have every right to say that. My take with this is 2 years ago when the Jets were doing this and I called that out, I got the excuse all the time. They've got plenty of time to figure this out. They've got plenty of time to figure this out. Well, it's the same issue creeping up 2 years later. They clearly haven't figured out how to snuff it out. People said the same thing last year. They've got plenty of time to figure this out. I hate they've got plenty of time to figure this out excuse. In their last 5 games, the Jets have hit the Rick Bowness model once. And other than that, and they've lost 2 of those 5 games. They, like we've said, they have almost like a magical ability to get themselves out of jams and win games that they probably didn't show up for, or maybe shouldn't have won. That's all fine and dandy, but it doesn't work in the playoffs. And so for me, it doesn't matter to me. If you want to go and throw in my face that they won 8 of their previous 9 games, go ahead and do that. And you're right. If the goal is for them to finish really high in the standings, and to a degree it is, then it doesn't matter. Fine. Let them play like garbage. Let them play not the way that they need to play to have success in the playoffs. And then let's just hope they turn it around right at the end and turn it on, smack, boom, go. Or you can take a look at some of the other teams that have had success and won cups over the years. 2019, the St. Louis Blues, who turned things around in January and then got to their blueprint and didn't leave it until they won the cup. And the Pittsburgh Penguins did the same thing in 2015, and they continued to do it through 2016. And the Colorado Avalanche last year tripped out of the gate and then just went on an absolute tear, except for a tiny little losing streak right at the end of the season that cost them the President's Trophy. But other than that, played to their blueprint for the entire season. So pardon me if I don't want to align myself with the crowd that's been constantly saying for years that don't worry about it. They've got plenty of time to figure it out. And then the Jets never figure it out, and they wonder why they don't figure it out. You should wonder why. And the reason is because if you don't figure it out in the regular season, if you don't take this kind of stuff seriously, if you're okay with winning 3 of your last 5 games, even though only one of them was how you should be playing, well, then I think you kind of end up, you deserve to get what happens in the end when the games get tougher and the opponents get tougher, and all of a sudden you can't muster the right game to beat those teams. That's my take on that. Let's move on. A lot of people are suggesting Pierre-Luc Dubois was distracted in this game. Does that hold any water for you, Ken?
I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a good game. I mean, when's the last time Pierre-Luc Dubois had a poor game? I mean, been a while. Is it possible he put a little additional pressure on himself knowing that the spotlight was on him? Sure. I don't think that was an issue. It was just one of those nights where he didn't have his legs either. And, there were a couple plays early on in the game where I thought that lineup was buzzing a little bit, but it was not a strong effort or showing by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I don't see that as an issue. Pierre-Luc Dubois would have wanted to play well. He had friends and family in attendance. He would have been motivated to play and to excel. I mean, to me, I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in this game, nor would I put a whole lot of stock in Pierre-Luc Dubois not playing well. I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois' 20-game block and 44 out of 40. Let's say he's had at least 40 out of 45 strong games, and many of them were of the exceptional variety. So this would be a subpar game for many players, Pierre-Luc Dubois being one of them. Again, I also think what I would also say was that Pierre-Luc Dubois will certainly be looking forward to going head-to-head with Austin Matthews and John Tavares on Thursday. Those are the kind of games that he relishes. Not that he didn't relish playing in his home province, but what I would say is that I expect him to, let's just put it this way. There haven't been many times this season where Pierre-Luc Dubois has had 2 suboptimal games in a row, and I don't expect that to be the case on Thursday. I expect him to be getting very involved physically, and also getting right in the heart of the, drawing and occasionally taking penalty parade on Thursday. I expect his intensity to be incredibly high, and I expect him to be excellent. And also, Bick Ronas, the Jets did not lose to the Coyotes today. So on Sunday. So I'm not sure what you're saying with losing.
Well, I know that Bick Ronas is either trying to get a rise out of us or the chat room, or he truly believes that, I think it was him who said this, that the Jets are a bubble team at this stage. Like, this is the one thing about this. Like, I know when I come on and I have these rants, people think like that I'm being down and sour on the team. The reason I'm saying this is because I have such high expectations for this team. It's like this team is capable at playing at a level. I truly believe this Jets team is capable of having a regular season like what we're seeing out of Boston, or what we've seen from Tampa in years past, or what we saw from St. Louis when they went on that run, or what we saw from Colorado. I say these things not because I'm trying to crap all over your team, and I know a lot of people take it that way, right? Like, a lot of people just can't stand you saying a negative thing about their team or pointing out a fault in their team. They just want you to say, like, and how much fun would Kenny and Renny be if you and I came on and we said, everyone has a bad night. That was a bad night. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and didn't break this kind of thing down. Like there's something to this. And if you're taking a look at the last 5 games and think that like that's the brand of hockey that wins you cups, I say good luck to you. I want some of that optimism and positivity that you're dealing with right now. But the whole point of us saying this is like, I truly believe that this Jets team is extremely capable, and extremely capable teams do amazing things and look really, really tough. I mean, every time, think about this. This is a great example. Think about every time the Jets played the Colorado Avalanche last year. Think about every single time they played against them. Colorado was ferocious. They were tough. The Jets ended up winning 1 game against them. They won it in overtime. It took a phenomenal, one of the nicest goals of his career, goals by Mark Scheifele to tie that game up, send it in overtime. They won it in overtime. And Colorado, I can't remember their circumstances, but you got the sense that it was far from their A game. But that's what it took to beat that team last year in that situation. Now, I'm not discounting the fact that the Jets are winning a lot. I do think that they're a find a way to win team, but I would prefer them to see them be we win because you can't stop us from winning, not because we pulled this off, and not because Connor Hellebuck stood on his head, and not because there was a bad bounce, or not because the other team made this egregious mistake. I want to see them win because they roll over teams, and I want to see that because I know I know that they're capable of that, and I also know that if they get to that and show that capability more often, I very much prefer and like their chances of doing something in the playoffs. I don't know if Pierre-Luc Dubois was distracted here tonight. And here, I don't want to create excuses for the team, but I will, to a degree, subscribe to the theory of an off night for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, I think their off nights usually show a little bit of a flash, and they get away, that allow them to get away with things. But I think there's a little bit of that because we've seen Pierre-Luc Dubois when he gets going with the puck. He's, it's hard to get him off it. I'll say this, Ken. I saw a lot of really good sticks from the Montreal Canadiens tonight that when Pierre-Luc Dubois started to get wound up and do that thing where he just carries the puck at like a slow speed, and it's fast enough that you can't get in front of him, but slow enough that he's not tiring himself out, but you're tiring yourself out trying to reach around him and knock the puck off his stick and all that kind of stuff. The Canadiens had good sticks tonight. I don't know if maybe, coming home has a little bit of distraction to it. I don't know if maybe, talking about his initiatives now in the city, his charitable initiatives, had anything to do with it. That was, I'll take a look at Pierre-Luc Dubois specifically and say, I don't think Pierre-Luc Dubois had anywhere near his A game tonight. I'll give that much. But I don't want the Jets off the hook here. And here's another thing. All the injury excuse people for the Jets, I'm wondering where they are tonight talking about the Montreal Canadiens injuries, because that's a team that's pretty banged up and injured. And I thought this whole injury excuse went both ways. I don't know. I thought people loved trotting that excuse out. It doesn't seem like they want to make that excuse with when it's the other team beating the Jets. Kyle Connor, let's go to him. Let's go to his accomplishment. 200 goals. What'd you think of his goal tonight?
Well, yeah, let's go. Let's go lamplighter.
Lamplighter. Let's give me your lamplighter then.
Yeah, that's it. Just not just because of the one-timer. That's just casual one-timer for Kyle Connor, but it's the puck movement that leads to the one-timer. That's what impressed me. There's lots of great puck movement there throughout the shift entirely. And Kyle Connor rips it home, and it also too there is a little bit of an achievement here. I mean, 7th fastest to 200 goals, and I think somebody mentioned it. I think it was our guy Scott Billick here. 17 games. Connor McDavid got there 17 games quicker, I believe. So that's a pretty impressive total when we're talking about if you're in the conversation with Connor McDavid when it comes to goal scoring and ability to get to 200. Now you're in a pretty good spot here. So to me, that's an impressive job by him. That was definitely the lamplighter, and Kyle Connor deserves some credit. Kyle was quick to dismiss. Yes, it's cool to do, and it's something you don't dream of when you're a kid. You dream of playing in the NHL, not scoring 200 goals, and he did, confess it was one of the things that's a pretty cool moment and something that he will reflect on the milestone when the season is over. But you and I will reflect on the moment, Sean. I mean, 200 goals in the NHL is an impressive number, and to do it in the limited number of games that Kyle needed to get to that point is pretty darn impressive. And he will be saluted for it with our lamplighter that is brought to us by the good folks at Trans-Canada Brewing Company.
No doubt. And if you want to join in, I agree with Ken. I'm not going to go down that road. I agree with him on his lamplighter. You share with us your lamplighter. The reason you should do that is because if you do, you are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Trans-Canada Brewing Company lamplighter Amber Ale, of course, brought to you by the people from Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to hand over an 8-pack to you, well, head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Go to their tap room. They've got a great store, great food, great common area. It's phenomenal. 11290 Kenaston. Go check it out. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a little bit of an exciting night. I always forget to do this, but I'm going to have to bang the gong tonight,
Indeed,
everybody.
there you go.
Because the last 8-pack was not claimed. It turns out that our last winner is overseas. Let me catch the name here. Yeah, Philly Danger. Philly Danger apparently is overseas. Couldn't claim it. Didn't want to gift it. So it goes back into the pot, and we have a new winner. I saw them in the chat earlier on. I don't know if they're still around. But Drew Music, you are on the clock. Drew Music, you got to send a direct message to SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name, Drew Music, and an email that I can get a hold of you at. And you, sir, will have yourself a frosty, delicious 16-pack of Trans-Canada Brewing Company Lamplighter Amber Ale, frosty and delicious. Make sure you get a hold of me. You're on the clock. You've got until before the start of the Jets' next game. So get at it. Ken, I do have to say we should give a shout out to the boys of Vittorio Rossi. If anyone could have dressed that game up and made it look nice, I think it would be the boys at Vittorio Rossi. Frankie could take and make that game look good. I know he could. But hey, if you want to take a disaster like, Kenny or Renny and make it look like it's got its stuff together, head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. Go see Frankie and the boys. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. Time for us to launch into our Gotcha Covered play of the game. This may be a tough one, Ken.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of candidates there for sure. Let's go with the Nate Schmidt blocked shot in the first period. It looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. It looked like it maybe caught him in the arm or wrist area, but that block shot by Nate Schmidt was one of the few Gotcha Covered where the Jets weren't relying on their netminder to bail them out. They got in the shot lane, blocked the shot, and I hope that you have a better one. It's fairly low in the barrel here. I'm with you. I think someone made the comment earlier. Hang on. Sorry. The honorable mention to Adam Lowry for dropping the gloves with Arbor Jackeye after Jackeye was kind of going after Mark Scheifele. I guess he had Mark Scheifele covered in that situation too. That would be my other potential.
You know what? I like that one. I'll say this. We've heard so much about it. I think Arbor Jackeye is one of these guys who's rolled into the league, and I don't care who you cheer for. I think he's like one of the most likable players in the league. People just seem to love him right off the bat, the way he makes fun of his name, the way he's kind of approached the game, the way that I think everybody was like, well, the idea that he was working at Costco, right? Like, this is a guy who shouldn't have made it and has made it. Like, just everything about his story is deep. But I think one of the other parts about that is like the way he'll just take on all comers. And I gotta say, like, I don't think this is maybe more a credit to Adam Lowry, but I would suggest Adam Lowry did not win that fight. I think Arbor Jackeye got the best shots in, and then he got the takedown at the end. It's not like a resounding victory or anything like that. But other than that, I would suggest that if that's a loss for Adam Lowry, I don't know that he's had a worse loss in a fight in his NHL career. This is a guy, to me,
I'm not sure that was even much of a loss. That was pretty even. Not a lot of blows landed. I think Jackeye maybe landed
Jackeye landed
one good right. Yeah,
he wins the punch count. He wins the takedown. He wins the fight. Hey, listen, it's not an insult. It's not an insult.
No, I'm not saying it is. I just don't think it was it was definitely not a one-sided fight by any stretch. And
not at all. This is my point, is that I think that if you don't have to call it a loss, Ken. I'm going to call it a loss. I'm going to say he lost that fight.
I'm not saying he didn't win. I'm just saying I didn't think it was not a resounding loss.
It was by no means a resounding loss, which I think is trying to drive home my point after this, that I truly do think that I can't remember Adam Lowry losing a fight as bad as that. And he didn't lose it badly, which means I guess this is another way of saying, I don't think Adam Lowry has ever done anything other than win his fights or fight to a draw. And you're talking about a guy who usually handles the heaviest business for the Winnipeg Jets. So this is one way of me saying, like, Adam Lowry is a tough customer. The other part of it is to kind of compliment Arbor Jackeye and say, like, this is a guy who consistently has rolled in his first year and kind of taken on the tough guys, the toughest guys of other teams, and not done it with a smile on his face, but this look of not being one bit concerned, and the way that he's pulled it off. And there was one fight where he actually did take a punch, like Arbor Jackeye, or other than or unlike Adam Lowry, has lost a fight already in his NHL career. He took a pretty tough one earlier in the year, but the way that he bounced back, I can see why fans like this guy. He's easily likable. He's an old school hockey throwback, but not in that kind of like stanky, poor hockey culture way, just in that way of like respectability and always stepping up, not taking it too far. He doesn't come across as a pest or a jerk. He just comes across as a guy who's going to like take care of his business for his team. I think it's easy to respect a guy like that. I would suggest there's a large level of respect between Arbor Jackeye and Adam Lowry. I thought that was an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, good tilt. I mean, I'm not surprised at anything in that situation. Jackeye's incredibly tough. So is Lowry. Two tough customers, couple big right hands thrown. Maybe one landed a little better than the other.
Okay. It is time for our newest segment, which got shelved for a while, but we need to bring it back from the people who brought you the free Nick Patan movement, or hashtag, and the Sammy Niku for Norris. It is time for us to dive into the Say Something Nice About Ville Heinola segment of the show. Ken, say something nice about Ville Heinola.
Ville Heinola played a solid game with the Manitoba Moose on the weekend. As for tonight...
Is that the end of the segment?
I take no joy in, saying anything negative about anyone. It was a tough go for Ville Heinola. There's no chance this was laid at the feet of Ville Heinola, this loss. No way. I'm not saying that for 1 second. Rick Bowness was quick to point out that all of the players were struggling today. This was not about one person. But he had a tough goal. I mean, I didn't think he played the one-on-one very well with Mike Hoffman. He was kind of playing it like a 2-on-1 after Brendan Dillon pinched at the blue line. I mean, Mark Scheifele was chasing on the back check. Ville Heinola has to attack Mike Hoffman, get in the shooting lane, and try to prevent that shot from happening. In the games that he played, where he put together a nice stretch of games before he got taken out of the lineup and then got sick, that's how he had been playing that way. I didn't like the way that he kind of went sideways on Yevgeny Dodonov earlier. He didn't really have great coverage. He got kind of caught in no man's land between the guy in the slot and between Dodonov on the second goal by Dodonov, on the rebound goal. But that's not on Heinola to me. That was, the draw was won cleanly by the Jets. And Dylan DeMello thought on their exit play on a one face-off, he went to rim it around the boards, and there was no right winger there. The right winger had flown the zone entirely. It looked like it kind of hit the boards funny, and all of a sudden Montreal has it. They walk down Main Street. There's a shot and the rebound, and I think it was, some people may not like this. This is just a great example of the growing pains that happen. Sean, we've been talking about this for 6 months to a year. I mean, if Ville Heinola was playing for the Montreal Canadiens, no problem. The mistakes can be made. It doesn't impact the standings, right? I mean, for tonight, this is what happens sometimes to a young player. And like I said, it wasn't just Heinola that struggled. A lot of players on the ice struggled, many of whom have way more experience than Ville Heinola. But what happened is, Ville Heinola needs to play the way he did before he was taken out of the lineup, when he was playing great. He didn't do that today. And that's not to say, I'm not saying send Ville down. But what I am saying is he can't play against the Leafs on Thursday. Dylan Sandberg will be back in the lineup. And some people may say, oh, well, why don't they bench some of the other guys who are struggling? Well, Ville Heinola is trying to win a job. He didn't win a job with the way that he played today. And this isn't a one-game assessment. This is just a reminder that Ville has things to learn. For all the people that are saying he has nothing to learn at the American League level, you should just put him immediately on the top 4, this was a reminder that Ville Heinola has work to do on the defensive side of the puck. And not just that, his strengths, which are plentiful, were not on display. Ville didn't have legs. He was not, using his clean exits. He was not a one-man breakout. He didn't really join the second wave of the rush very often. And again, that's not blame. It's just a reminder that this is a young player with plenty to learn, and he will continue to learn. But sometimes it's going to mean an occasional hiccup, and that hiccup, unfortunately for him, is probably going to result in him sitting out on Thursday against one of the best teams in the NHL. And don't get me wrong, there will come a time where Ville Heinola needs to play against the best teams in the NHL, but when he's in competition with someone else who put together a really good stretch of games and then came out of the lineup, Ville couldn't afford to have an off night, and unfortunately for him, he did.
Just before I launch into this, I want to touch on this. Kenny's water bottle says, Jets are a good team. They will likely finish first or second in the division, but if they want to contend, they have to get this nonsense out of their game. You don't see the Bruins having games like this. I'm going to tell you something, Kenny. Behind the scenes, Kenny's water bottle got a hold of me because he needed to pick up a couple of these home field dig deeper shovels. He won 2 of them. He was not who I thought he was or who we thought he was. He was just someone neither of us know. So that was interesting. But we had a little bit of a conversation behind the scenes. And I feel guilty? I feel like he talked to me behind the scenes and he's like, you know what? This Renny's a nice guy. He's a great guy. And now it's swayed him because he keeps agreeing with me over the last 3 shows. It's weirding me out.
Hang on a second. Kenny's water bottle. The Bruins recently lost to the Arizona Coyotes, so I'm not 100% sure that. I'm not saying that. I think they probably got Vamelka'd in that game.
And now Kenny is turning on Kenny's water bottle.
I'm not turning. I'm just saying.
Dogs outside. What is happening? What is going on here?
The reminder is it happens to all teams.
No doubt.
But it doesn't happen very often to the Boston Bruins because they are the only elite team in the NHL, as I've said before.
I don't know how many times, and this isn't just because John Montgomery is the kind of guy who would say this. Sorry, Jim is the kind of guy who would say this. I don't think you've heard often from Jim Montgomery him coming out and saying about his team that they wouldn't have won that game if it wasn't for their goaltender, or that they got bailed out, or all this kind of language that we are hearing around the Jets, and rightfully so, hearing this language around the Jets. I do agree with Kenny's water bottle, but you're right. Everyone has off nights. Maybe this is that for the Winnipeg Jets. I just say, and hey, if it's going to help you sleep better tonight and you just want to say it was an off game for the Jets and that's going to help you sleep, then you should lock in on that and believe in that. I would suggest the last 5 games tell you otherwise. I want to get into the Ville Heinola thing. Paul Robert, I thought, had a great comment here where he says, how many chances does Heinola think he'll get? He's playing like he's waiting to go back down to the Moose. When does he step up and take a spot with the Jets? So I'll say this. I couldn't agree more with Paul Robert, and everyone here who's been listening is going to go back and remember me saying the whole thing about when the chat room was disgusted with me not agreeing that Ville Heinola needed to be handed on a silver platter 5 or so straight games to get his game underneath him. I didn't agree with that. This is all about earning a spot, and I think Paul Robert is nailing the thing that a lot of the people who are really pushing behind Ville Heinola are missing. And that is, I know Ville Heinola is a great prospect. I truly think that he's got potential to be in this league and be an impact player in this league. But the pathway for every player coming into the league, unless you are on a terrible squad that is losing no matter what and can take your season and dedicate it to bringing along prospects and making them feel more comfortable, a la the Anaheim Ducks right now. A lot of great young players. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to the playoffs. So you can take this year and you can hand it over to kids like Mason McTavish and or Jamie Drysdale or whoever and allow them to come along. That's not where the Winnipeg Jets find themselves. If you're on a competing team, this is a winning business. And in a winning business, your entry to the league, the way you get into the league is you get in your spot and you hit your spots. That's how you get there. That's how Kyle Connor made his way into the NHL. That's how Nick Ehlers made his way into the NHL. Patrick Laine, Mark Scheifele had to be sent down and had issues. Andrew Kopp spent some time. Adam Lowry spent some time down in the minor leagues. They had to come in and hit their spot. And so the one thing that I think that is missed in this argument, and I think a lot of people, I don't know, someone earlier on clearly thinks that I'm not a big fan of Ville Heinola. That's not the case at all. But one thing that I will agree with 100% is what Paul Roberts says here. I think that Ville Heinola, and I think you just touched on this, Ken, but Ville Heinola has not grabbed the brass ring. And it's your job to bust your way into a $1 million paying job by grabbing the brass ring, not having people give you chance after chance after chance after chance over and over again because you could be good. What that looks like is oh, geez, why am I drawing a blank now? From last year, another Finnish guy, third line, kept giving him opportunity. Christian Vesalainen. That's what that looks like. It looks like that if you keep giving a player opportunity when they haven't earned the opportunity. So, and I think Ken is right about this. Ken says that Ville Heinola shouldn't be playing in Toronto after that. He shouldn't be. After that performance, the message that is sent in that moment should not be, we're going to have patience with you and we're going to do this, even though, and we're going to sit other players who've hit their spots in favor of you. And now I know everyone's going to be going nuts on Pionk over this afterwards, but this is the deal. Ville Heinola, if he wants to play in the NHL, needs to get in. He needs to put in a string of games that says, you can't take me out of this lineup because I did this, because I did this, because I didn't make mistakes. That's his job as a prospect, making it in the NHL, and it is most definitely his job as a prospect making it in the NHL on an elite team. That's the way it should be. Paul Robert absolutely nails this here, and to me, that's just not what we saw from Ville Heinola tonight.
No, but he played very well in the games before he got taken out of the lineup. I mean, that would be my only contention. It's not to say that he had 10 great games in a row, but he had 3 or 4 that were really good, and it was just one of those things where on the numbers game he came out of the lineup.
Right, but he came out for another player who had also been hitting in spots. So what do we call that? That's a competition between other players, right? He wasn't getting taken out because he was being punished. He was getting taken out because there's a player in Dylan Samberg who brings an entirely different element to his game. Mm-hmm. And a coach says, okay, if you haven't separated yourself from the pack, then I'm going to make my decisions based on, and in this case, Ken, if I remember correctly, it was based on sickness. Like Ville Heinola got sick, and that's why
he sat 2 games and then he got sick when he was going to come back in.
Okay, sure.
So to me, it's just his 5-game block. He probably had 4 strong games out of the last 5. So I'm just saying that he was taking steps towards that, but today was a step backward.
Sorry.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm starting to think more and more that Bick Ronas is just here to troll with the Fire Beast.
Yeah, I think it might be Ryan, actually.
There we go. And hey, did I not call it the mall comment?
How has
Pionk been this year, Sean? We've touched on this topic. We've talked about Neil Pionk and where he's been at certain stages. I've said he needs to play more like Josh Morrissey if he's going to be effective the way that they need him to be in this lineup. He needs to be up in the play. He needs to be making fast decisions. He needs to be pushing it down the ice. Do I think that he's got the defensive capabilities that Josh Morrissey has? No, I honestly think Josh Morrissey is bulletproof. He's like 99% of the time doing the right thing in the defensive zone. I don't think anyone's like Josh Morrissey. I don't think you would expect them to hit that. But has he been a defensive liability at times? No doubt he's been. But he's also up and useful on the power play, useful in the offensive side of the zone, and we haven't seen that yet from Ville Heinola. He hasn't come in and done that. Is it fair? No, but the one is an established veteran that they know what to expect from. Ville Heinola has to start by showing them he's trustworthy. Neil Pionk has gone through this before, so like it or not, it's easier to take Ville Heinola out of the lineup than it is to take a guy in your top 4 or your top 2 out of the lineup. I don't know. I get it. People aren't liking this, and someone the other day sent me this trade proposal, Ken, where they had suggested that we trade Neil Pionk for Aaron Ekblad, and it's just back to the whole thing where it's like, It's like, okay, let's take the guy who's the whipping boy right now and send him out the door and bring in Jacob Chikrin. Like that's the funny part to me is the people that hate him think that they should take him, trade him for one of the best defensemen available out there. Okay, let's do that. If you're seeing problems in his game, you don't think so, other teams don't see problems in his game. I'm just saying this. Ville Heinola, if you want my takedown and the comparison between he and Neil Pionk, Ville Heinola has not done enough to supplant Pionk. He needs to come in and he needs to do some things that would even get to that conversation. And I still think other guys fall out of the lineup before Pionk does. So to me, the people who think that the Neil Pionk argument is a magic bullet argument of why Ville Heinola should be in the lineup and Pionk should be out, I think they're missing the point with that. It's not the silver bullet that you think it is. Ken, do you have anything to say before we move on?
No, we got to go realty action, and then we'll finish up strong here.
Okay, so why don't you give a shout out to our main man, Sweet Lou?
You bet. For the folks looking for your real estate needs to be met, if you're buying, you're selling, you're curious about what your house is worth, what's going on down the street or in another area entirely, you can contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. If you prefer to hit him up by email, do so at lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. And his website is www.louferlin.ca. Lou Ferlin, exceptional realtor, excellent human, and excellent supporter of the community and of this show. And we appreciate him for that.
Sweet Lou, I'll tell you this. I don't know if anyone could sell that game, but if someone could sell that game, it would be Sweet Lou, no doubt. Where do you want to go before we close this down?
Oh, boy. We should get quickly into, just wrapping up Heinola. Heinola sat for the last 6.5 minutes or so of the second period. And I actually, again, this is not an overreaction, and I don't think this was done as much as a penalty or a punishment for Ville Heinola as much as it was a reset, Sean. Don't you agree? Again, this is not a coach saying, I'm punishing you. What it is allowing his player to reset, because after you've been on the ice for 3 shifts that led to 3 goals, you need to take a breath, because now all of a sudden you either try to do too much if you're Ville Heinola, or you try to do nothing at all and just try to survive a shift without even getting on, something bad happening. So for me, I think that was a smart move, and it was also a smart move to get him back on the ice in the third period and give him a chance to touch the puck and try to battle through. So for me, I think that was the job well done on that front. I talked about forwards earlier. We talk about accountability all the time, and Mark Scheifele basically took a couple shifts with the fourth line. He wanted to get him going, and he moved Adam Lowry up to try to get those other wingers going as well. So interesting, it didn't happen. It didn't stay very long or anything else, but it was something that's noteworthy. Right? Mark Scheifele certainly would have taken notice, Sean, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Hey, I wanted to get to something here because it's been asked, and I think we should probably touch on it because it was a rumor out there that Ivan Provorov would maybe be coming here. But let's. Are you okay with going with this, Kenny? If not, I'm going to go in this direction.
You should start. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Marshall Patterson says, please touch on the Philly D-man stuff, please, Sean. Okay, let's do it. Tonight was Pride Night in Philadelphia, and they wore Pride jerseys for the warm-up, and Ivan Provorov chose not to participate in the warm-up because he didn't want to wear a Pride jersey. His reasoning was his religion. So he stepped out of that. I got a couple of things to say. Just first and foremost, I'm just going to go out and be like, I support Pride Night 6 ways from Sunday. Growing up, someone very close to me was gay, and I could tell was gay. From the time we were very, very, very young children. I always knew it was going to end up in that direction. I watched him go through the process of trying to figure himself out and trying to figure life out as a teenager, dating girls, doing all those kind of things. Like, I think it's a different time now. I think one of the reasons it's a different time, and there's we don't lose. I don't know. I don't know about the numbers. I think we lose less people than we used to because people aren't kind of trapped in feeling ashamed about what they're doing. I've got support for this all day long. When my friend finally came out as being gay, it was a happy moment for me. I never said anything to him about it beforehand. I thought it was his not secret to tell, but it was his news to tell when he was ready to come out. So I never approached him and said, I think you're this, I think you should come out. It was his process, but I tried to always make sure that he felt supported and not judged. And I hope I did that. I think I probably fell down at times in life, and I wish I had been better in those situations. But we had Brock McGillis on our show, and it was one of my favorite shows. Ken, awesome. You had to leave at that time, and because the show had gone long beyond what we were supposed to do, and you had to leave because you had a prior commitment. I stayed on for another 20 minutes or something with Brock McGillis because I was fascinated by the conversation and so proud of what he's doing in the game. So I just wanted to say Renny is a supporter and consider a friend and an ally of the LGBTQ community. I want people to be happy. I don't think people have any right to tell other people how to live their lives. So I just want to make it clear that's the side of this that I'm on. The thing that I found extremely strange about this was John Tortorella afterwards said that he has respect for Ivan Provoyov in his beliefs and what was okay with him expressing those beliefs. Pete Blackburn pointed out that this is the same John Tortorella that said that he would bench any player that kneeled during the national anthem. And I don't get that. I don't know how you rectify those two things. I don't know how you say I support or admire someone who stands up for their beliefs when it's against gay people. But boy, oh boy, you better not stand up for your beliefs if it's against your country and how, Black people feel that they are not being given a fair shake. I think there's a whole bunch of imbalance there. I think it makes it tough for there to be any future between the Winnipeg Jets and Ivan Provorov if there was ever any truth to that rumor. And keep in mind, I know that Ivan Provorov has a history here in Manitoba. He played for the Brandon Wheat Kings. But I mean, I don't know. I think that puts a certain label on Ivan Provorov and boy, oh boy, I guess like if a guy's standing up for their religion, I'm not a religious person. I'll be the first one to say that. And so maybe I'm missing something here, but I think it makes it very tough for the Winnipeg Jets to go forward in looking at a player like that, seeing as how this point has been made. And I just have to say the double standard that existed there between being okay with a player doing that and not being okay with the player kneeling during a national anthem, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, it's just not a good look on a number of levels for the player, for the organization, all of it. I mean, and I understand, like, I give credit to the Flyers for making Provorov available rather than having people speculate as to why this was the case. We weren't there, but I mean, it's not a good look on a number of levels. And, even for the league, it's hard to say hockey's for everyone and then have something like this happen. I mean, I know a lot of people have speculated maybe the Flyers should have either maybe known in advance, or if they had known in advance, then Provorov should have been scratched or something like that for the game. I mean, I just don't like the way this has been handled on a number of levels, and it's a bad look. And I'm with you. I think we are here to support, and I don't think that it's a bad look for Ivan Provorov. And I think the bigger issue, no matter what trade list he was on, the bigger issue is getting things in line in terms of being supportive and being inclusive. That's the only way the game gets to a better place, is if inclusivity is a major priority, and it doesn't sound like one in this case.
You know what? There's one other thing I have to say. If we're all shaped by our environments and the people that we're around. I come from small town Manitoba, can be a very conservative area. I'm going to tell you something. This is a personal story for me. My dad passed away 7 to 8 years ago. He was a vice principal and a biology and phys ed teacher out in Lac du Bonnet. He was a loud, brash, yeah, crazy. It totally fell far from the tree in that he was a loud, brash guy. But one of the things that he was adamant about was making people feel supported and cared for and loved. And after he passed away, I ran into someone from my hometown of Lac du Bonnet who's friends with, or good friends of mine. It's a relative of theirs. I'm not going to bring things out because this is not my story to tell, but it was someone who was gay and was gay in high school, and moved on, works in the film industry. In Winnipeg and in Manitoba, and I bumped into her. Didn't really know her. After my dad had passed, she came to me and said that my dad and his support for her allowed her to feel comfortable, to feel to be who she was, and to live the life that of who she was and be proud of who she was. And I'll tell you, I don't know if I ever had a more proud moment in my life over my dad, to hear that he made someone's life better in that manner and made someone feel comfortable in their own skin and made someone feel accepted in a time in the 80s when people, would have felt unaccepted in those moments. I'm fiercely proud of my dad for having been that kind of man. And if one day I can be half the man that my father was, I'll consider it my greatest accomplishment in life. Ken, is there anything that we should shut down before we go? Oh, here. No, let's do it. It's time for the home field comments of the game here. I'm going to hand this one out. I'm going to go right back to the very beginning to Terry M., who said, "Don't be surprised how the Jets played tonight. They played the exact same way on Sunday against the Coyotes and won. Unfortunately, Lady Luck run out on the Jets tonight." I think this is a super solid take, and I think that Terry M. dug deeper tonight, and that's why Terry M. is the winner of the Home Field Dig Deeper Award, and as such, he wins the Home Field Dig Deeper K&R trunk shovel that one of our viewers, Jeff Johnson, had mounted on his wall. How awesome was that, Kenny? Have a look at it here. This is what Terry M won. Yes. Congratulations. I also want to say, and I also want to throw this out there, the list of people who have yet to claim their awards. Waiters, I know I hear you out there calling for Scott Billick. The good news is he's going to be at K&R, the K&R party coming up on the 21st, this Saturday, as the Jets take on the Ottawa Senators. Waiters, you won the Home Field Dig Deeper Award last show. You need to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name and your email, and I will send you your voucher for that shovel. We are still waiting on Baba Jet, John Rayo, and Blue Thunder as well to send me their contact information. You have all dug deeper. You have all won the Home Field Dig Deeper shovel. Please get a hold of me so that we can close this all down here and get fully caught up on the shovels. Believe me, you want this. I love that he put it up as a centerpiece, but this is also very functional as well. But if you want to hang this somewhere, this is a source of pride. You dug deeper on the Kenny and Renny show. This is your trophy. Please claim it, everybody. Kenny, you did a great job here tonight, as always. The crowd loves you, as they should. I love you. You're a great guy. You got great takes. What else can you want?
Thanks for sharing also, too. We've had a couple of sharing moments, and it was very, courageous of you to do so.
Oh, no, not at all.
I appreciate you sharing the influence of your father, too. I think
no problem.
That's something that people appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. T. Will's got something going on here. See, he gets it. 4-time Chevy Award-winning T. Will. Be proud of this. This is a trophy you're winning here, everybody. This is a good idea for the party. I don't know. Let's see if we can pull this together. We only need 45 of them.
I'll go to Dollarama this week, buddy. I'll go to Dollarama. I'll see if I can find some.
One of the things I should say before we go, it's different this time around. We are up in that event room where there's only room for 45 people, which is why we need to sell tickets to make sure that the 45 people show up, but also that we don't overpack that room. But the entire place is open. So if you want to come down, if you don't have tickets for the Kenny and Renny live show on Saturday, come on down to their tap room and we'll be down there and chatting and hanging out with people. And we're hoping to take the party downstairs afterwards. So if you want to come hang out and meet some people from the chat room, room and you can't make it there till later, you just want to come have a drink or some of their great pizza or food, we'd love to see you down there. It doesn't just have to be the people with the tickets. We'd love to see anybody down there, period. And the last thing I want to next two shows are the 25th and the 18th. Yeah. Okay, so the 25th is actually, that's the KNR live event on Ken's actual birthday, March 25th. It's already just under 1/3 sold out, so I know it feels like that's a long ways away, and to a degree it is. But these shows have filled up quickly, so if you want to make sure that you guarantee your spot, direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds, and I will make sure that you have a spot saved for one of those two shows, or both those shows if you want to go to both of them. Chat room, you rocked it as you always did tonight. Last thing I'll leave it, as I always do, is say if you appreciate these conversations happening in these spaces by the likes of Kenny and Renny or the Illegal Curve Show or Winnipeg Sports Talk, please appreciate and support the sponsors who fight to keep these conversations going in these spaces for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Furlan, and Homefield. Thank you so much to them. Thank you to you, Kenny. Thank you to you, chat room. You're all the best. We will talk to you after the next game. A huge tilt against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Good night, everybody.